some slums redevelopment, brownfield redevelopment, mixed housing, rental housing. In the peri-urban region, focusing on satellite, greenfield townships, integrated housing colonies with walk-to-work housing with strong consistency. In rest of the state region, focusing on development of small and medium townships, rental and worker housing, integrated with the industrial parks, logistic hubs and emerging economic corridors. Our esteemed panel will help us to answer three very questions in this regard. What must the government of Telangana do differently? What can financial institutions to do? Increase affordable housing finances. What commitment can private sector make for promoting affordable housing? Friends, we are committed to taking the outcomes of the discussions behind this room into policy notifications, operational guidelines, model projects and budgetary decisions. Telangana has the vision, the institutional base and the economic strength to become a national and global example of inclusive urbanization. With your ideas and partnership, I am confident that the Telangana model of affordable housing 2047 will not only serve our state, but also offer learning and inspiration for affordable housing development. On that note, I once again welcome all of you to this session. Thank you for your presence and look forward to a rich and efficient decisions. Jai Hind, Jai Telangana. Pleasant.
Honorable Minister, sir, thank you so very much for your kind and encouraging words. We all are excited about the prospects for housing in the state, and with your leadership, we are very confident that Telangana will reach newer heights, particularly in the affordable housing segment. Thank you so much once again, sir. With this, we'll start the panel discussion, and as you are already aware, the panel consists of members from various facets of the housing sector. We are privileged to have the Dean of the School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, which is the premier most institute in India for housing and development. Dr. Rao, if I could direct the first question to you, sir. What are the opportunities and market gaps with regard to housing for all? This has been a topic which has been going on for many, many years. What do you think are the market opportunities and gaps and at an India level and more specifically at the Telangana level, sir?
Certainly. I think this is a very topical...
Sir, the mic can be a little closer to you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Honorable Minister, with your kind permission. I think this is a very, very important and topical subject that has been chosen for discussion today. Housing, as we all know, has a lot of forward and backward linkages. So any investments that are made in the housing sector actually lead to greater economic opportunities in as many as about 230 or 240 odd industries, both forward linkages and backward linkages. So investments in housing would mean investments in a wide variety of other areas where there's a lot of employment opportunities that are going to be given to our people. Because without employment, there's no money, and without money, there's no housing. Let's remember that. You have to have money if you want to buy a house, whether you are a very rich person or not so very rich person. Some amount of money is always required, and if you don't have that, of course, there are financial institutions and there are others who can always chip in and give you some loans and so on and so forth. The opportunity for the market, for the industry, I presume is what you are asking. Yes, there is a huge housing shortage in this country. We are only about 40% urban. The last time we had a census was quite some time ago. But while we are waiting for the next census, we presume that we are about 40% urban. So we still have a large number of people living in the rural areas, and we still have a lot of people who want to migrate into the urban areas because of the employment opportunities, which means that whatever is the urban housing shortage, which is in several millions, is only going to increase in the times to come, which means that the opportunity is humongous. There are some estimates that as of the year 2022, the urban housing shortage the total housing shortage in Telangana is about 2.8 million, out of which a major chunk actually happens to be in the urban areas and a very small percentage in the rural areas. This is obviously going to increase in the times to come when more people from the rural areas will come to the urban areas. Now, market opportunity, the government is already doing its bit. You have the Indiramma Housing Scheme, you have the Andhra Pradesh Housing Board, you have the AP Housing Corporation Limited. They are doing a fairly good job. You have the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, urban and Shahri and Gramin. Some funds are coming from there, some funds are coming from the HUDCO as well. But is that enough? That is clearly not enough, because we still have a large number of people living in the slum areas, which are in not just Hyderabad, but several other urban centers in the state of Telangana. So, what do we do with them? There is a huge corporate sector, real estate developers. We have members from the CREDAI also here with us. And real estate developers are providing a lot of housing in the urban areas. But this housing is, of course, for the upper and middle income segment. Can they also downmarket their products? Can they also provide for the lower income population who cannot afford maybe a 3-bedroomed house, but can perhaps afford a 1-bedroomed house, maybe something costing 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs. Why cannot they provide for it? Unfortunately, in our country, there is also a luxury housing demand. So developers, obviously, they are in here for making money. So they are catering to the luxury housing demand, which perhaps is now more or less getting saturated. If you look at the inventory overhang, if you look at the vacant housing, there are figures where luxury housing is more or less now saturated. So if developers want to remain in the business, then I think you better start building small, get into the one-room segment. I'll not use the word affordable, I'll not use the word low income, because we don't want to go the nano way. So I need only a one-room house. I could be a rich man, I could be a poor man, whatever. So you have products which are of a wide variety, wide range, wide ticket size, costing from 20 lakh, 30 lakh, 40 lakh, going up to 2 crore and 3 crore. And whoever wants to buy whatever, they can come and buy. So there is a huge unmet demand, and there's a market opportunity here. And real estate developers, many of them are coming and buying. There are, of course, you all know as developers, there are incentives that are being provided both by the central government and the state government. Income tax concessions are there, stamp duty concessions are there. Almost all state governments now have affordable housing policies. I think Telangana one is on the anvil. I think we can actually learn from the other states' examples, and we can maybe make out a better one. So I think there's a great opportunity, and the opportunity is actually in the numbers. So build more, and probably the very big developers may not want to come in, but there will certainly be a segment of developers who would want to build the one-room units,
Sure,
and provide them at a much reasonable price. So I am quite upbeat on
Sure,
this
sir.
particular segment of the market.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Thank you so much. Before we move on to the next question, Mr. Gautam.
So, thank you, Professor Rao, for your comments. So, we have amidst us a very august audience, including our Honorable Chairman of the Legislative Council, Shri Gutta Sukender Reddy Garu, and Honorable Advisor to Government, Shri Sudarshan Reddy Garu. Thank you for joining us in this discussion, sir. We are proud to have you amidst here. Taking forward from what Professor Rao said, about the actual demand, I'd like to just pitch a couple of data points on that. because our state has taken a pretty comprehensive house-to-house survey of the housing demand. And with a good app called Indirama app, where we have gone house to house and captured the demand, including the present living conditions, including the, what kind of a housing structure they are in, and also capturing their socio-economic factors. So we still have an unmet demand in urban areas, an unmet demand of 20.33 lakh in the LIG/EWS segment and 8.77 lakhs in the MIG segment. And yes, total of 28 lakhs, 8 lakhs in MIG and 20 lakhs in LIG/EWS. And in fact, these are not people who are completely dependent on government subsidy. Of course, EWS government will be, catering to, and this government is very, very committed as part of the Indirama ILU scheme. But there is a lot of purchasing power, but the bracket of the supply in that bracket is missing. That is what is reflecting in this demand. So I just want to place these facts before the panel.
Sure.
I request Preetham to take.
Sure, Mr. Gautam. Thank you so much for highlighting those statistics. So I'll quickly move on to the President-elect for CREDAI National, Mr. Ram Reddy. Sir, from the industry standpoint, you just heard the statistics shared by Mr. Gautam. He said there's a latent demand for about 28 lakh houses. So 8 lakh houses in the MIG segment and about 20 odd lakh houses in the LIG segment. How is the industry viewing this? How are you looking at this opportunity? How can you, as the leader in an industry body, motivate the private sector to participate in this opportunity, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Preetham. Sir, thank you so much for giving that figures. 28 lakhs, it's a surprise to us. I mean, the demand, what you're talking about it. Yes, CREDAI plays a role. I mean, across the state, we have 15 chapters. So every chapter have a big connection with the CREDAI Telangana state. So that housing demand today, you talk about especially middle class. So affordable housing, there is a definition of 45 lakh rupees is the cap, and 60 square meter in metros, and non-metro is 90 square meters. This 45 lakhs cap was decided 8 years ago. So today in 45 lakhs you are not getting those affordable houses. The definition of affordable housing has to be redefined. So this we have been giving the representation from CREDAI National multiple times. Hopefully, I mean this time also we met the Honorable Finance Minister, then Housing Minister. Possibly this budget we are expecting that limit of affordable housing going to be increased. That is very, very, very much required, sir. I request the Honorable Minister from your side also has to push for this, sir. Otherwise, so the very basic affordability where we are getting the land prices have gone up, the construction costs gone up, everything has gone up. Inflation, you can see 8 years inflation, if you take every year, I mean 5 to 7% inflation is there. If you take that also, it comes to 75-80 lakh rupees. So this we have been continuously talking to the governments, but hopefully this time I think after talking to them we got some positive note and we are definitely going to have this. So affordable housing definition, then concessions has to be given. Even in the cities like Hyderabad, if you want to build an affordable housing, so land prices are so high. So getting affordable is very, very challenging, sir. So I request the government has to look into this and provide some lands to the developers on a PPP model so that developers will come forward and they will build so many affordable houses, then they will be having their own business models. So this will definitely will encourage the developers and it will become easy for you to also cater to so many ways, sir. So definitely yeah, thank you.
Good idea, na? Definitely will work out it that way also.
Thank you so much, thank you so much. Yesterday, Preetham was mentioning about the old, what do you call, all housing board houses were there. So,
example, Kukatapalli.
Kukatpalli housing, there's a prime area today.
Ground
So,
plus 3 present.
yes, yeah, if you make it a PPP model, definitely it's going to give a big boost to the, this affordable housing, sir. Thank you so much.
Great, great. Mr. Ram Reddy, you stolen a couple of questions that I had, but it's good that we got a response from the Honorable Minister as well. I'll quickly move on to Abhijit from the World Bank. Abhijit, the Honorable Minister spoke about the financing opportunities and available of funding for the housing sector. How does World Bank come in and support state governments, the private sector, and ultimately the end users and buyers? How are you able to participate in this value chain? And if you can talk about some successful partnerships that you have managed both in India and outside India.
Thank you, Peter. First of all, I'd like to thank the government of Telangana for inviting us and for organizing this panel discussion. So from the World Bank Group's perspective, which includes both the World Bank, the IFC and MEGA, which is our private sector financing arm and guarantee arm respectively, we generally look at engaging with our government counterparts in 4 areas when it comes to housing. One is land, one is permissions, third is infrastructure, and fourth is financing. So you asked me very specifically about financing. Maybe I'll elaborate that a bit more than the others. But just to give you an example, because I think the President-elect of CREDAI, Mr. Ram Reddy, also mentioned this. So land is critical because it adds to the cost when the private sector needs to come in, right? And from land perspective, there are 2 things. So land costs near the core of the cities are high, like he was mentioning, and land cost away from the city in the suburbs. We heard about the ORR and the areas outside the ORR which would be developed are more affordable. So there it becomes important to ensure the connectivity to these locations, right? Brownfield redevelopment, yes, definitely looking at land parcels which are not giving the economic returns. You can look at reconstruction, you can look at PPPs like you mentioned. But for the affordable housing to be constructed for people who are going to work mostly in the peripheral areas, maybe linked to some industrial areas, etc. The second is permissions. So the second major cost comes usually in terms of both the planning permissions and the permissions for change in land use, right? And these are 2 areas which I think the government can come in. I know the government of Telangana has already done a lot in these 2 areas, but this is an area that we work with different state governments in India, specifically in Tamil Nadu, as well as other countries, in identifying the bottlenecks and finding the solutions. The third is in terms of the infrastructure. So the infrastructure is important. We have some housing projects in other countries where the component of infrastructure, so water supply, sewer, etc., connectivity through mass rapid transit systems is more than the actual house construction component, right? Because once you're able to provide service land at certain locations, the private sector will automatically come in, pick it up, and deliver what is required in terms of the supply. And the fourth is, of course, in terms of financing. So in financing, we, World Bank as well as other multilateral institutions, will look at both the demand side as well as the supply side. So recently in our engagement in Tamil Nadu, we had a $440 million engagement. There the government was keen to move away from being a provider to becoming more of an enabler. They were already enablers, but more of an enabler. And one of the things that was done was setting up of this shelter fund, which allows long-term tenor financing at market rates, but quite comparable to, scheduled commercial banks, especially for developers who are interested to come into the affordable housing section, but probably don't have the credit profile to get attractive financing rates from financing institutions, commercial financing institutions. So this kind of a facility which was promoted by the government, was the equity of World Bank, ADB and the government of Tamil Nadu, has helped both rental housing as well as ownership housing. And since I mentioned rental housing, the Honorable Minister mentioned the 28 lakh, or rather Mr. Gautam, you mentioned the 28 lakh demand. So in terms of meeting the gap, I think it's important to look at rental housing as well as one of the options. The focus should not exclusively be on ownership housing. So let me just stop.
Yeah, so Abhijit, I had a specific question on rental housing, Maybe we'll come back to that topic in a few minutes. We also have another stalwart from the financing industry, the ex-CMD of HUDCO, sir. But, sir, allow me a couple of minutes. I'll come back to you. The next question I want to direct to both the developers from Hyderabad, Mr. Nandakishore and Ajitesh. How are you both seeing Telangana and Hyderabad's residential housing market supply and demand situation, and what factors will play a critical role for the private sector to operate in all budget categories? We are seeing more and more developers playing in the upper middle income category, etc. How do we make sure that everyone participates in all budget categories?
First of all, thank you for having us here. At the outset, I would like to say the land prices being out of board in Hyderabad are being overplayed in my view. Actually, if you see, barring a couple of pockets, the land prices are not as exorbitant as they are made out to be. If you look at Kokapet, if it is 150 crores there, every kilometer you move away from there, the price drops by almost 6 to 7 crores per acre. And by the time you reach Patancheru, it would be around 20-25 crores per acre. And if you look at the FSI cost, I think it would still be within a decent range of say 1,000 rupees to 1,500 rupees a square feet, which is I think pretty much a fair expectation, even if you compare with cities like Bangalore and other cities. But what is most important here is we have to understand what is affordability. Affordability, while the government has defined as a certain budget of 45 lakhs and all that, for me affordability is to be looked at from an individual household perspective. If a household is able to finance their EMI with 40% of its household income, then it is affordable to them. So that way you have to categorize the people into various brackets like EWS, LIG, MIG, HIG and all that. Now in the EWS category, I think come whatever, I think there have to be different models developed for that. And one of the biggest points what I would like to make here is that Hyderabad has got almost close to 2 million people in the slum areas, if Google is to be believed. Now 2 million people in the slum areas would roughly translate to around 4 to 5 lakh households. Now how do you do that? I think this is where we need to borrow the model of Mumbai. The model there has matured a lot, and I'm sure in most of this slum redevelopment, there will be many developers who would be more than happy to participate in this slum redevelopment. And I think we can adopt the Mumbai model here to do for that. And one of the prerequisites, of course, for this would be that government will have to ensure that there are other government lands which are made available so that developers can build transit camps where people can be temporarily located and then brought back once these developments are complete. And also there is another aspect that we also have to consider is that bulk of these home buyers, if we were to get into greenfield projects, if developers are to get into greenfield projects, bulk of these home buyers have a problem of credit availability. Housing finance companies will not be able to finance them. And I think that is where the government intervention becomes very important. They have to perhaps give some kind of a credit guarantee to cover the lender's risk. And I was talking to a developer in Mumbai almost 15 years ago who had done in Karjat, he had developed this affordable housing. One of the biggest problems he faced was that the people who bought homes were not able to pay the subsequent installments, and that puts a huge risk to the project as a whole. I think that is where the government can again intervene. Apart from that, what the government can also do is give the developers incentives. I would say more than the developers, I would say the home buyers incentives by way of stamp duty exemption, which is again a substantial cost. We don't have a separate. And of course, approvals, as everybody says, there has to be a separate body which will give approvals, whether it is an SRA development or whether it is a development of affordable housing. There has to be a separate body who has to do that, and it has to be a genuine single window system. I mean, it should be something which operates truly as a single window system. One of a easier solution would be where a government has huge land tracts outside on the periphery of the city, right? So what I suggest, sir, is that if we can identify large land parcels across the 4 corners of the city, the government can do the designing, concept development and master planning of those lands. All the government has to do, once they have done that, and create the trunk infrastructure also, so that the developers don't have to run for, taking approvals or permissions. All they have to do is that we can tell the developers, okay, you develop here this much of area, you get these concessions or benefits elsewhere in the city. So I think that is something like what we are seeing in Mumbai. That thing can also be adopted. So so the developers, one of the reasons the developers are not coming forward is mainly because they cannot do the running around, they cannot focus their energies on developing low margin, low profit areas. And it will be unfair and impractical for us to expect that private capital will make sacrifices. So I think the government has to do those master planning and developments across all locations in the city, and the developers will be more than happy to come and participate.
Similar this development what you said now, in which state it is going now?
Sir, I understand it is happening in Mumbai. They are doing in
Any that type of
yeah,
document?
in Ahmedabad also they have done something similar.
Secretary.
Yeah, I will definitely. Actually, I've been interacting with Mr. Gautam a lot, and we have a lot of conversations. And I can see there is a genuine interest to do something really good, and we'll be more than happy,
It's
sir.
really good. Definitely, this government is also thinking that way.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandakishore ji. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Ajitesh, can you quickly come in and can I restrict your time to about 2 odd minutes, please?
Sure. See, first and foremost, to understand this entire landscape, right? Am I audible now? Yeah. See, from the government side, government has land reserves in the city, core city area, right? Some of them are greenfield, some of them are brownfield. Greenfield land parcels, government has to auction at, and we need to allow the market to realize its potential. By not doing that, essentially we are eating into the balance sheet of the government. So I think the main innovation can come around brownfield land ownership, or what we call slums. If something can happen around easily establishing ownership in the slums. Because see, as it is, if you look at the slums, we have maximum an FSI consumption of maybe 1.5. Whereas in the west of Hyderabad, we go up to 10 FSI. So the FSI is a very beautiful concept, which is one of the biggest reason why still things are affordable. Let me share one small data point. In the prime region of Hyderabad, at a macro scale, an average house costs per SFT around 8.5, 10,000 rupees, like let's say Gachibowli. In Bangalore, an equivalent sort of area, house costs 20,000 rupees, in Gurgaon it's 27,000. So Hyderabad is currently the most affordable city in the country. That's to start with. Why we are there? Fundamentally because of the high FSI regime. Now second thing, when many people say a lot of things with FSI, first of all, there is no unlimited FSI in Hyderabad. If your property is abutting a 40-feet road, you can only build 7 floors. If your property is abutting 4-lane road or 80-feet road, you can only build 15 floors. Only if your property is abutting a 6-lane road or an 8-lane road, you can build like multiple floors. And a big road can accommodate all of this traffic. And second thing, see, this has become a market force. So we need to make policies which become market force. So when it comes to affordable housing, we have to work on how, see, essentially the slum lands, whatever lands have gone for the slum, today are, in a way, are catering to the affordable demand in an unorganized manner. We are trying to make it organized. So the FSI advantage exists. We need to just work around the ownership things. There is no additional capital commitment for the government or for the private sector. Next, I do agree with one of the esteemed panelists that, yeah, I think housing for all, we need to focus more on the rental ownership, rental side, not on the ownership. Because the problem with ownership is it's going to cost a lot of money. Let's say somebody is earning 9 lakh rupees per year, right? And I'm taking a home loan of 25 to 27 lakhs. I'm going to spend half of my money just paying my EMI. I can't live with that. See, households which are earning less than probably 10 to 12 lakhs per annum, a good amount of expenditure will go towards healthcare and education. They should not be wasting money on the side. So a good rental housing scheme, if you bring in, where the cap rates fall anywhere around 7 to 8%, then you will have lot of demand. And also there are major global financial institutions like IFC Washington and ADB and these things who are giving fund exclusively for it. So capital is available. I think we just need to solve a little bit of the supply chain. Government side innovation lies around land ownership. As private sector, our role involves in on the supply chain side. So we need to invest in R&D to bring down the cost of construction.
I think the future is going to head in the direction of precast. So we need economies of scale. I think we'll be getting there.
Absolutely, Ajitesh. Thank you so much. We will come back to precast and other construction technologies as well, if time permits. But it's the right time to introduce Mr. Suresh, the former CMD of HUDCO. Sir, you heard all the panelists. Everybody is talking about finance and credit availability and rental housing, etc. With your vast experience, sir, how has HUDCO been an enabler for this entire sector? And what is going on? What are your suggestions and recommendations to improve the supply in the affordable housing category?
Thank you very much. Very nice to get the views, and more importantly, I'm happy to hear from the Honorable Minister a very clearly sequential type of housing approach in the core of the city, in the outer area, peripheral area, and small and medium town, because the whole state housing is a very major one. And that's it's the right approach, because that really brings the right level of inputs, more so because the cost of land in those particular case, the third category will be much lower, which is also a point brought out by many people here. But what is interesting is that as far as HUDCO as a financial institution is concerned, not only during my time earlier, but even continuously the present team also, we have the regional chief of HUDCO sitting inside the one, and I'm very happy during the current year only around 1,45,000 houses for the rural area, which he has indicated has already been done with about 5,000 crores, and about 95,000 urban houses have been also funded with substantial amount of money. And if I'm not mistaken, by January, another major project is also going to come. Of the order of around 14,000 crores of money is coming into the housing segment in Telangana. I'm only talking of Telangana one. And that particular thing covers not only the housing component of the weaker section, but also the low income one. I got to really, the Honorable Minister as well as Gautamji is there. They've done a fantastic job of actual delivery of houses of the order of around nearly 3 lakhs houses to be taken up and implemented. It's not an easy thing to deliver, and they have been able to do that. And that's equally an important one, because funding institution would be happy to fund, provided you're able to good delivery coming, and also do it on time, cost and quality. And if you're able to do that, financial institutions will be very happy to extend funding in the sector. And Telangana is doing extremely well, not only through Telangana Housing Development Corporation, Telangana Housing Board, and equally important is a contribution on housing coming from my brother sitting on the left. The private sector is contributing well. Around 300 big developers are there in Hyderabad and nearby, and around 500 are there in Telangana from other side. So contribution from the private sector is an equally important component of housing that will be coming. So contribution by the public sector, primarily on the low income housing and weaker section housing. They have a weaker section housing program, a big thrust being given, and I want to really give a salute for that and for the great initiative, not only in policy framework, but also in actual implementation through good cooperation using the I was very happy, the gentleman who came with me to escort me, he's dealing with the urban housing, even up to the 9-story development in the heart of the city through the GHMC. They are doing 560 square feet houses of the order of about 8 lakhs. So it's pretty good. 8 lakhs to be done with that particular cost. Land cost, leave it out, but that's a different issue. But it's being done very well. And therefore, different type of component where the land is very intense, you go a little higher rise, maybe around 6 or 7 stories, and maybe where land is not so costly, you can go to 2 or 3 story or 4 story development. The differential approach is also very good, and therefore the funding is coming in a big way. There is no problem in that sector. And they're also opening in the private sector. We stopped it in between for some time. Now, opening the real estate sector to the private sector agency is also a new initiative that Sanjay Kulshrestha has done, the new CMD has done. So that will be also good news for funding. Of course, in addition to HUDCO as an agency, large number of housing financing institutions are there for the lending on the retail lending. Because when developers put the money, the whole housing cost is done through the housing home loans with reasonably good rates of interest. And of the order of even 8%, 8.5% rate of interest with the EMI coming still for every lakh of loan, less than around 1,000 rupees for every 1 lakh of loan is pretty good. And you're having, and with the latest announcement which is given by the government on RBI's new interest rate policy, you can expect all the housing financing institutions to bring down the housing loan also to slightly some extent also. I do not think that should be a problem if the delivery is an important one. That's where they score well. The ministry is there, the secretary is there, MD is there. If you're able to deliver well, implement it on time, good technologies to be brought in, that's where financial institutions will be very happy to put any amount of money. I do not think that's a problem. But the big number, that number which is about 28 lakhs that he said, covering the high income housing plus also the low income and weaker section there. One suggestion which I would like to add with all that the Honorable Minister is here, if you are able to do something on land assembly and also infrastructure being laid, the Honorable Minister asked which states are doing that, then ask the private sector to come and join on a public-private partnership basis. Not only the pure public sector doing, pure real estate sector doing, do some projects on public-private partnership. Haryana has done that in a big way. Maharashtra has done in Sitco and the new townships in Nashik and Nagpur. West Bengal has done some projects, including equity participation on company also, just by the way. So that model is also there. So public-private participation are working where the government is good for land and infrastructure, private sector is good for design and implementation. So we can do to that particular company also in a big way. So I know there will be many questions coming, but that's an immediate answer I can give. And as far as the government of Telangana's massive program of housing is concerned, the vision that you have put, sir, we are there to fully support that particular program. Not only for that, I understand the new township that's going to come in this very location there, Bharat. The HUDCO is already coming in a big way to fund that, including all the other infrastructure for water supply and other related, because infrastructure is a larger component, which is also an important component that will come on that. Possibly, if you are able to make the land and development cost, say around 30% of the total cost. Why is it going from 4,000 rupees a square feet to 10,000 rupees in Hyderabad? It is the cost of the land cost that's coming. Opportunity cost of land is where that's coming. We should bring that down to around 35%. Then the building construction cost can be around 60%. That can only happen if new landmarks, a good suggestion which he gave over there, I agree. If we, with infrastructure we do that, I'm sure they will deliver. Because construction cost in any case is not more than about 2,500, about 3,000 rupees. Even at the best possible specification, it will be around 2,500 rupees. It is the opportunity cost of land that is really making the particular thing get into that 10,000 level and 12,000. A good point that was suggested over. It's still, he says, as he says, Hyderabad and environments are still much better than other metro cities that you have over there. I'll stop at that point of time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Suresh. We love your energy and we love your articulation.
Thank you.
You know, we wish, yeah, a louder round of applause will be great. Thank you so much. Dr. Rao, if I can come back to you, and Ajitesh, you brushed upon the topic of precast housing. So Dr. Rao, you know, from an urban planning and urban design principle, you know, have you seen instances where urban planning tools have been used to augment supply in the housing sector? Are there any tricks in the trade that can be employed by the governments, you know, in Telangana specifically to augment supply? And Ajitesh, if you can follow it up with construction technologies, apart from precast, what else can fasten construction and bring in supply quicker into the market? You know, even Mr. Ram Reddy and Nandkishore can add, but Dr. Rao, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think one of the fundamental requirements is land assembly, as very rightly pointed out here. Very recently I was in Bangalore and I was talking to the people in the Karnataka Housing Board. There, what they have done is that instead of going in for direct land acquisition, they brought all the landowners together and they have come into an agreement with the landowners, and there's a public-private partnership model where there's an agreement and there's a sharing, and the private sector is coming, and Karnataka Housing Board, they are doing a lot of housing, and the people are very happy there because the landowners are also getting some amount of benefit out of this. So rather than going in for Like in some states,
Same concept here is also planning now. In some
where,
ORR and in between triple R.
okay,
We are planning same thing.
a similar kind of a
Yeah.
public-private partnership.
Approaches and everything, also roads, radial roads, everything also already planning, ongoing works is going.
Okay, okay. That's very nice. The other thing is, the mention was made about FSI. So the floor area ratio is very, very important. You need to get the maximum out of the limited land that's available. So I know, just now that has been said. So it depends upon the road weights. So you can also do a kind of a cross subsidy, wherein if a developer does affordable housing, then he can get an incentive FSI like they are doing in the case of Mumbai, where lands which are occupied by the slums, the developer can come in, and then there's a slum rehabilitation authority, SRA is happening there. So there are those ways by which you can enhance the efficiency of utilization of the limited land that is available, so that you can accommodate more in the limited land that is available. So this FSI incentive is, I think, very, very important. And of course, there are other financial incentives. I don't have to talk about that. It is already
Sure,
been said.
sure. Thank you, sir.
On the cost of construction, I think you can.
See, I think prefab is for the foreseeable future. Prefab would be a good investment area. Again, there's robotic construction and 3D printing, but it's in very early stage technology, and frankly, not a very good solution for us here, because we have to go vertical. Especially in the West, land availability is high, so you can go horizontal. So yeah, we need to invest in prefab tech and any tech which will help us in going vertical construction, and probably sort of, see, even in prefab also, the more important things are the viability question is coming, especially from the point of view of transportation of these materials. If something can be done around the transportation costs, or maybe some sort of yard or a manufacturing plant sort of, because these are all concealed plants, so they are not environmentally pollution contributing. If you can make some of those plants on different directions of the city, then the transportation cost comes down. So that is what I would recommend. And even the schools like we have construction worker training schools can start working on these problems, because labor training also becomes sort of important in this.
Yeah, so I'll bring in Mr. Ram Reddy there, sir. He spoke about worker training and schools. So what is the industry body doing about faster construction, cheaper construction, at the same time taking care of the skill development in this sector?
Yeah, especially about the skill development, CREDAI National has a tie-up with NSDC, CSDCI. So a lot of programs have been conducted across the country. Every city chapter, I mean, people are coming for giving the training. Because these days, you know, how, I mean, problematic about the skilling. So no mason want his son to become a mason. No carpenter want to become his son as a carpenter. So now government also is supporting them in many ways. So there is no problem for them to their livelihood. So that's how nobody is willing to come for the work. So now as a developer, we have to give them some pride to work. So already we are giving a lot of facilities. Earlier, the living condition was completely different. Today, the living condition have been improved a lot. So, I mean, and their dressing style, all those things, I mean, it's been changed. Now people are just feeling that, yes, I mean, instead of calling as a laborer, we are calling them as a worker. So that way, some better things are happening. So apart from that, cost of construction to reduce, especially majorly bulk production of the precast. So it has become precast is not a great solution today, because so there is no users for that. There are some challenges in going for the construction. So those challenges has to be addressed further. And when it comes in a huge volumes, definitely it's going to become cost effective. I just give an example. When vitrified tile came in, I think 20 years ago, when I used it was 110 rupees per square feet. First I purchased. But today you know how it is, when even you are getting it at 40 rupees also. Because the volumes, the technologies, the speed of production, all these things are happening. So in the construction also we need that. Speed is very important, and even you have to encourage those industries to establish. So again, establishing industry, we are facing some challenges. So those challenges has to be addressed. More people has to come for the industry and more use, I mean, many has to adopt the new technologies. Already you have seen every 7 days you are going to build a, I mean, one floor of slab. Those technologies have been there. We have seen we are evolving. I mean, from a concrete mixer to, from gamela to gamela, then hoist to then cranes and all those things are coming. So future is definitely is for the technology and lot of research has to take place in the technology also. So to reduce the cost, technology is the only biggest solution. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. Kishorji, your thoughts, and then we'll move on to Mr. Suresh. He had some inputs on technology as well. Please, sir.
See, I think from a technology perspective, what gets manufactured in the factory on a repetitive basis will obviously be the cheapest compared to what gets done in situ. So if you look at China, I think bulk of their homes are manufactured in the factory and they're just assembled at the site. So it's a assembly line process that they follow. I think that is something which we need to replicate, and that is a much larger issue. But what is most important, I think, apart from the construction cost and technology, I think the cost of building a home, one, time is a very significant factor. And as I mentioned, if the government can facilitate a scheme or a policy wherein the time is cut down, I think that is going to add a significant benefit to the, I mean, bring down the cost. The second is the financing of the construction, the developer finance for affordable housing. I think here again, cheaper finance, I think much like what the central government has done with the Swami Fund, which is doing an amazing job in the stressed asset portfolio. I think the same thing, if something that is similar can happen in the, for affordable housing, I think that is another big advantage. And the third advantage is the GST on construction. Now, whether you are building an affordable housing or you are building a regular housing, the GST from a construction side is the same. While the buyer is getting only GST at 1%, but from the developer, the GST on the construction is still the same. If that can be brought down substantially, then I think this will bring down the overall cost of construction. Add to that, if the state government, I'm sure if they can do something and bring down the approvals cost, which is again today similar, and also certain other parameters like, you know, the parking requirements, irrespective of the kind of homes you are building, the parking requirement still remains the same. I think these are some areas where we can work around to bring down the overall cost of construction by reducing the time, by certain interventions from the government and certain use of technology, and also by bringing down the approvals costs and timelines and all this. I think this is everything has to fall in together. Sure. And of course, as I said, finally, eliminate or bring down the land cost component as much as possible. That's the.
Thanks, Kishorji. Suresh sir, over to you. You had some thoughts on technology.
Yeah, I think it's an important one. At the end of the day, it's going to be construction, and the way in which things are going on, the cost of construction is component of building materials as well as the labor component there. On an average, if it is going to be in the urban component, about 70-30 between the building material cost and the labor component there. And this is also the second largest employment generation, housing in over there. You're about 5 crore construction workers, and that's a very major area next to agriculture. So if you're able to give a big thrust for the construction workers who are dealing mason, carpenter, bartender, plumber, electrician, around 65 trades are there, tile layer, glass fixer, painter, etc., etc. And if you're able to do a big job, at one point of time, somewhere in the late 90s, the good moment was the National Network of Building Centers, which is or Nirmiti Kendra or Nirman Kendra. We said that primarily a technology transfer center, a skill upgradation center, a manufacturing center for products or precast there, and also housing guidance center, and also construction workforce. A 5-in-1 job. And fortunately, Telangana has done good in the Nirmiti Kendras also in a big way, but I do not know at this point of time it's still going on well or not, but it will be good to retain, especially your program outside in the rural component of housing and small and medium towns, tier 2 and tier 3 cities. We should strengthen that particular component, and that will give better, in which case wastage will be lower, quality of housing will be better, and we should strengthen in that. And I also agree with him, precast is a very important component. He suggested that at the beginning over there, we left it. There are a lot of good initiatives coming in this country with including 3D housing, the whole thing. But you require good volumes coming there. Committed volumes are required in that particular area. And previously we thought that we have to do in a factory and bring it all the way to the site there, travel cost and all that. But now there are a lot of technology, we can do it. Also the manufacturing component at the very site itself. Many companies have done. But I agree, the economies will come where the wall. If we are able to do, even today I find a large number of good construction with prefab which are being done over there of the order of around 1,800 to 2,000 rupees a square feet as against casting. See, time is the most important one. If cast in situ construction, if it takes about 2.5 to 3 years for a project of a 20, 30 story building, you can do the same thing in about 1 year time period. And that's an important component. Interest during construction is a very major component there if you're able to do that. But we should have an enabling environment to support that. But skill upgrading and training through the National Academy of Construction here, NICMAR's unit here, the Paradise Training Institutes, all that together along with the Building Center movement or Nirmiti Kendra movement can give a big thrust. Take my word, as the Honorable Minister is here, sir, this is one area which can have a major impact for the large construction workforce which are there in Telangana, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Suresh. Abhijit, if I can quickly bring you in back to the rental housing topic. A few speakers spoke about rental housing, and I think there is a consensus amongst the panel that everything cannot be for purchase supply. What has been World Bank's experience? How has World Bank enabled rental housing? Because the economics in India is quite different and very difficult, right, for rental housing to work. So your learnings and suggestions there, please.
Thank you, Preetham. Before I come to rental housing, I'm just going to take 2 minutes and probably reflect on some of the discussions. So blended financing was one of the thoughts that came up, and this is something that many countries have done successfully. We have done this in Brazil, we are doing this in Kenya, looking at providing catalytic risk financing support or looking at providing credit support to developers. So both sides can be looked at. I think the main point I want to say is that when a multilateral agency is getting involved, it need not be in terms of direct financing. It can also be in terms of a guarantee, right? Which means we are guaranteeing that if there is a problem that comes up to a certain, after a certain threshold, then the guarantee comes into play. So there is a very minimal cost of guarantee. So the actual load of that guarantee on the cost is very low compared to, say, a pure borrowing. And just wanted to make that point because the government is doing its policy thinking. The second is transit camps is very important. But with transit camps, we've seen some states are now exploring with rental vouchers, right? So for a 2-year period or 1.5 to 2-year period, a rental voucher of X amount is being given so that they can rent houses within, let's say, 2 to 3 kilometers of where they are located while the reconstruction goes on, right? And this rental vouchers I'm flagging because as a long-term policy for the government to look at, a rental voucher policy has been experimented in places like Chile, in Indonesia, where effectively every migrant worker who is coming in, recognized migrant worker coming in, is given a rental voucher for 3 to 4 years. And that, over that period, then they graduate to, say, ownership housing, right? So that's another thing the government could consider. Linked to this is also the issue of the lowest brackets, the first, second, third, fourth deciles, the economically weaker sections, and whether they have the affordability to buy, housing. And this is where the role of the affordable housing finance companies come in, right? Now, with the affordable housing finance companies, the rate of interest is higher than, let's say, going to a formal. But we have seen, based on experience in Tamil Nadu, we have seen that people are able to afford and repay. And the government comes in through two means. So one is they come in through a tripartite agreement between the AHFC, the government as well as the owner. And the second is there is a certain risk guarantee which is introduced by the government, which says that if you're not able to pay 2 quarters EMI, let's say, we cover it. After that, you'll have to vacate the house. So that kind of a system can also be looked at. Now back to rental housing, the question that you asked.
Thank you.
So, sorry. So on rental housing, what we are experimenting, so you're right, the returns for the private sector to come in is not there, right, to come in from a pure rental housing perspective. So we are looking at a possible blend of grants. So grants which would come from various government schemes that were mentioned, or grants that could come from other concessional sources for the construction cost, right, which actually reduces the cost at which the private operator operates the rental facility. So in Tamil Nadu, where this has been tried, the rentals without any concessional grants would be something around 12 to 13,000, has come down to 3.5 to 4,000. That is the impact that PMAY, ARHC window, or they have the Working Women's Hostel scheme, which is running quite well now, can play, right? So that is one thing I think every state now needs to look at. The second is industrial worker housing. So if we have, I mean, the previous session was was chaired by the industries department as well, and we were talking of the industrial ecosystem, no, growing. That ecosystem requires housing, and rental housing is probably the best way to do it. So a tie-up between such industrial sites, industrial zones, or even corridors was being mentioned. No, new corridors are being set up, identifying affordable housing within those corridors, right, for rental housing has the possibility, because then the industrial estate comes in and subsidizes a part of the rent. So here the capital is not getting subsidized, the rent gets subsidized. So there are various models which can be looked at, which has been tried globally.
Thank you, Abhijit. We'll quickly move on to the private sector on the dais, starting with Mr. Ram Reddy. Sir, we spoke about PPP fleetingly, so how does the private sector and how does the industry body like yours, what kind of partnerships with government? We talk about PPP, which is private-public partnership. What models would the private sector be excited about? What models are, foremost in terms of acceptability?
So mainly the government has to provide the land, then proper approvals, proper infrastructure. These three things are from the government side. Then developers will come forward and definitely make whichever the project is there, they're definitely going to be successful. Apart from this, especially for affordable housing, the finance cost has to be definitely, as Mr. Nandkishore mentioned, it has to be reduced. Now, any private developer getting a project funding, it ranges from, and then the biggest, best developer is getting at 10%, it goes up to even 15% from private lending, I mean, non-scheduled banks. So that cost of funding is huge, and even approval also is taking huge time. Every project, Minister Gar also is in the real estate, he knows how the approval process is there. That has to be simplified, because a project, when the land is purchased or took on a development by paying the huge advances, if it takes a year to launch the project, huge burden on the, finance cost will be there.
The timelines is very important
Yeah.
for approvals. Yeah. Definitely government will take as early as possible the positive decisions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now bill now has come, but still, because it's not a criticism, but improvement. I'm talking about it. Lot of improvements has to be taken place. Definitely, it's going to big help, because Telangana is a model for many. Because especially the GO number 86, where Shekhar Reddy Garu put his best efforts, that what is that limit? Sky is the limit to construct. That is given a big boost to Hyderabad real estate. Why various developers across the country coming to Hyderabad means because of such decisions. So even we talk across the country, our policies are great. So, I mean, whatever build now and TS, I-Pass, all policies are great, but there is big scope for improvement because every permission, we have to go to many departments. Every department takes, every section, it takes a time. You know how much time it takes on that. So on this dais, I request the Honorable Minister, please look into this. Definitely, this is going to make a big game changer for us. The vision, what 2047 is a great vision. 3 trillion economy is going.
who's working in the construction sector, 2.7 equivalent people have to work in the agri sector. Almost all 1.8 people have to work in the manufacturing sector. So investing in housing under the visionary program of the Honorable Chief Minister to make our economy $1 trillion by 2034, investing in housing related policies will greatly push forward the economy and create opportunity for the bottom end of the society, thereby making them richer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajitesh.
I think PPP in the housing or the real estate sector is always going to be a tricky thing because people look at land, and mostly when we look at land, we look at it retrospectively. अरे ये land 10 साल पहले you had given it